Imagine, just for a second, that you swallow a handful of pills.
Okay.
And almost immediately, your heart rate just completely spikes. You start sweating profusely, and your blood pressure crashes to this, like, near fatal level.
Yeah, your body goes into total shock.
Exactly. You literally collapse, you're rushed to the emergency room, and you are absolutely convinced that you are dying.
Which makes sense, given the physical symptoms.
Right. But then a doctor walks in, looks at your chart, and tells you that the pills you just swallowed, well, they were made entirely of sugar.
They were just a placebo.
Yeah. And within minutes of hearing that fact, your blood pressure completely normalizes.
I mean, it sounds like a magic trick, but it's a completely documented medical reality.
Yeah.
You know, we are conditioned to think of the human body as this very predictable, linear machine. Like, you put a physical toxin in, you get a toxic result.
Right. Input equals output.
Exactly. But when you introduce human belief into the equation, well, that predictable machine suddenly starts breaking all of its own rules.
And that is exactly what we are getting into today. So welcome to the Deep Dive Learner. Today, we are taking a custom-tailored journey into the truly extraordinary power of the mind-body connection.
It is such a fascinating topic.
It really is. Our mission today is centered on some incredible source material from the book Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza. We are going to uncover how your thoughts, your beliefs and your expectations aren't just these fleeting, invisible concepts floating around in your head.
Right. They're actual physical blueprints. They can radically alter your brain chemistry, your genetic expression, and obviously your bodily health.
Exactly. So to really grasp this, I think we have to look beyond the idea of just, feeling a little better after taking a sugar pill for a headache. We need to look at what happens when belief becomes absolute.
The extreme cases.
Right. There's this case from the 1970s involving a man named Sam Lond, and he was diagnosed with metastatic esophageal cancer.
A really grim diagnosis.
Terrible. His doctors told him it was terminal, and he had only months to live. So he slowly withered away and died, exactly on that timeline. But when they performed his autopsy, they found out the cancer had been misdiagnosed.
Wait, so he didn't even have it?
Well, he did have a tiny nodule of cancer in his liver and a small spot on his lung, but neither was anywhere near big enough to kill him. The whole area around his esophagus was totally free of disease.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Sam Lond didn't die of cancer. He died because his doctor believed he was dying, his family believed he was dying, and most importantly, Sam believed he was dying.
So his brain just accepted the prognosis as absolute reality.
Yeah, it systematically shut his body down to match that reality.
It's terrifying, honestly. But, if a completely fabricated negative belief can kill you, does a fabricated positive belief have the power to actually heal a physical disease? Like reverse it entirely?
It does. And we see this in the famous case of a guy known as Mr. Wright. So he had advanced lymphoma, just huge tumors all over his body, literally the size of oranges.
That's all.
Yeah, he was essentially on his deathbed.
Yeah.
But he begged his doctor for this experimental new drug called cribiosin. So he gets the injection on a Friday. And by Monday, his doctor reports that the tumors had basically melted like snowballs on a hot stove.
Wait, down to what size?
Down to half their size in just 3 days.
How does a tumor physically melt just from belief? I mean, chemically, what is happening?
His brain mobilized his immune system. Like, belief isn't just a mood, it's an actual biological instruction. His expectation of a cure signaled his nervous system to aggressively attack those tumors.
That is wild.
He was actually discharged from the hospital, completely cured. But 2 months later, the media reported that clinical trials showed cribiosin was actually totally ineffective.
Oh, no. So he reads that.
He reads it, completely loses his belief, and his tumors immediately returned.
Just from reading a news report.
Right, which prompted his doctor to try a massive psychological experiment. He tells Wright, hey, those previous reports were wrong and that a new double-strength batch of cribiosin had just arrived. So the doctor injects him again, but the syringe is filled with nothing but distilled water.
Just water.
Just water. And once again, the tumors vanished. He was completely tumor-free on distilled water.
That is unbelievable.
But the story has a really tragic end. A couple of months later, the American Medical Association officially announced that cribiosin was a complete hoax. It was literally just mineral oil. And when Wright heard this undeniable news, he lost all hope, relapsed immediately, and died 2 days later.
Okay, let's unpack this. Is the brain essentially acting like an overzealous method-acting movie director? Like if you hand the brain a script that says you are magically cured, does it just force the physical body to act out that reality, even if the medicine prop is entirely fake.
That is exactly what the source material suggests. The brain doesn't necessarily distinguish between an objective threat in the environment and a subjective threat generated by a belief. If the belief is absolute, the brain commands the body to produce the exact chemical reality of that belief.
And we see this brilliantly illustrated in Dr. Bruce Moseley's study on osteoarthritis of the knee. Have you heard of this one?
The sham surgeries, right?
Yes. He took a group of veterans who were just hobbled by severe knee pain, like needing canes to walk. Some got standard arthroscopic surgery, scraping the joint, washing it out, the usual. But one group was put under general anesthesia. Dr. Moseley made a small scalpel slice on their knee, splashed some water around to mimic the sound of the procedure, and then just sewed them back up.
So he didn't fix a single thing inside the joint.
Nothing at all. And the men who received that sham surgery experienced the exact same pain relief and mobility recovery as the men who had the actual joint scraped and washed.
That's crazy.
And it gets better. 6 years later, 2 of the men who had the placebo surgery were interviewed, and they were still walking normally, completely pain-free.
It is incredibly inspiring to think our minds can melt tumors or heal bad knees. But, it brings up a terrifying flip side. If belief is this unthinking, automatic biological mechanism, what happens when we truly believe something terrible is going to happen to us?
Right, that brings us into the territory of the nocebo effect.
Huh.
So if a placebo is a harmless substance that heals you because you expect it to, a nocebo is a harmless substance that hurts or even kills you because you expect it to.
Like the story I opened this deep dive with.
Exactly. The man who collapsed after taking a handful of pills. That was a real case involving a student named Fred Mason. He was deeply depressed and in a clinical trial for a new antidepressant. He tried to end his life by swallowing all 29 of his remaining pills.
And his body literally reacted as if he had actually swallowed a lethal dose of medication. His blood pressure plummeted.
His pulse was racing at 140. He was medically dying. Until the doctor arrived, checked the trial records, and told him he was in the control group. He had overdosed on sugar pills.
And his vitals normalized in minutes.
Just minutes. But the nocebo effect doesn't just cause, systemic shock. It operates on a highly localized cellular level, too. In a 1962 Japanese study, researchers took a group of children who were highly allergic to poison ivy.
Okay.
They rubbed one of the child's arms with a completely harmless leaf, but told the child it was poison ivy.
I'm assuming their bodies reacted to the suggestion.
Oh yeah, their skin blistered and turned red, purely from the expectation of the toxin. What's fascinating here is what happens in the second half of the experiment. This is what truly shifts paradigms. They took the child's other arm and rubbed it with actual toxic poison ivy.
Oh.
But they told the child it was just a harmless leaf.
Wait.
11 out of 13 children had absolutely no allergic reaction whatsoever.
So their bodies literally transcended physical reality, like the thought overrode their biological memory of a severe allergy.
Yes, the belief overruled the actual toxin.
But I have to push back here for a second. A rash is just skin deep, right? And blood pressure is highly reactive to anxiety. Can a belief actually cause fatal, permanent harm from something completely harmless?
The historical records point to yes. Look at the case of Vanders in 1938. He had an altercation with a local voodoo priest who hexed him, basically telling him he was going to die. Vanders went home, took to his bed, and began literally wasting away.
Just from a curse.
He was on the brink of death. His doctor, Drayton Doherty, realized that conventional medicine couldn't cure a disease caused entirely by belief. So he faked a procedure, he induced vomiting, and pretended to pull a live green lizard out of Vanders' vomit, claiming the curse was physically lifted.
Wow. And because Vanders believed the curse was gone, he fully recovered.
He fully recovered.
Think about what this means for you, the listener, in your everyday life. Like, if we can drop dead from a fake voodoo curse, aren't we all inadvertently hexing ourselves? Like when you obsess over pessimistic news, or you read a massive list of side effects on a medication bottle and suddenly start feeling a headache. Are we programming our biology for failure?
That is the exact danger of the nocebo effect in modern life. We are constantly absorbing suggestions from our environment, our media, and our own negative self-talk. If you constantly tell yourself your body is failing, your brain will dutifully send the chemical signals to make that your physical reality.
So to stop hexing ourselves, we have to understand how the brain physically manufactures these results. Like, how does a thought turn into a blister or a melted tumor? The source material points to 3 biological mechanisms: conditioning, expectation, and meaning.
Let's start with conditioning, since it's the most primal. We all know Pavlov and his dogs drooling at the sound of a bell. But Dr. Robert Ader proved this happens in the immune system too.
Oh, the rat study.
Right. He gave rats water sweetened with saccharin, but he spiked it with a drug that suppressed their immune systems. He did this enough times that the rats biologically associated the sweet taste with immune failure.
Okay.
Eventually, he just gave them regular sweet water without the drug. The rats' immune systems still failed, and they died.
So their nervous systems had been conditioned to shut down just from a taste on their tongue.
Exactly. The brain remembered the chemical state associated with that taste and replicated it. The second mechanism is expectation, which is slightly different.
How so?
Expectation is when your conscious anticipation of an event triggers the brain to prepare for it. In a Vancouver study, Parkinson's patients were told they were receiving a powerful new drug. Now, Parkinson's is fundamentally a lack of dopamine in the brain, but they were given a simple saltwater injection.
So how did their bodies react to the salt water?
Brain scans showed that just by expecting to get better, these patients manufactured a massive 200% increase in their own dopamine levels.
200%.
Yes. To get that kind of dopamine spike normally, you would have to give someone a clinical dose of amphetamines.
So the thought alone manufactured the exact chemical compound they were lacking. Which brings us to the third mechanism, meaning. How we interpret an action completely changes its physical effect on our cells.
All right.
In one of the most fascinating studies from Harvard, researchers looked at hotel maids. These women were doing rigorous physical labor all day long, lifting mattresses, scrubbing, vacuuming, but they didn't view it as exercise. They just viewed it as tiring, endless chores.
And because of the meaning they attached to the work, their bodies weren't getting the cardiovascular benefits of exercise.
Exactly. So the researchers simply sat half of them down and taught them that their daily tasks actually met the Surgeon General's requirements for rigorous daily exercise. They changed the meaning of the work.
Just gave them a new perspective.
Yeah. And a month later, the maids who were given this new meaning had lost weight, lowered their blood pressure, and decreased their body fat.
But they didn't change their diets or work any harder.
They didn't. The control group, doing the exact same physical labor but without the new belief, saw absolutely no physical changes. The meaning assigned to the physical action altered the body's metabolic response.
Which all comes down to neuroplasticity. The golden rule of neuroscience is nerve cells that fire together wire together. Your brain literally alters its physical structure based on what you pay attention to.
So what does this all mean? Like, if Parkinson's patients can literally manufacture their own dopamine, and other studies show patients synthesizing their own endorphins to block pain, are our bodies essentially fully stocked internal pharmacies? Like, we have every chemical we need already inside us, and our conscious mind is just the pharmacist deciding which keys to turn.
The science strongly supports that. Your body contains the chemical compounds to heal, relieve pain, induce sleep, and fight disease. The placebo effect is simply you learning how to access your own pharmacy without needing an external pill to trigger it.
I mean, I understand how the brain can pump out dopamine or endorphins, those are brain chemicals, but how does this command signal from the brain spread to the rest of the body to heal knee tissues or melt tumors or change our physical structure? That seems like a massive leap.
It is a massive leap, and it requires crossing into the science of epigenetics. For decades, we operated under the myth of genetic determinism. We were taught that your genes are your unchangeable destiny. Like if you have the gene for a disease, it's just a ticking time bomb.
Right, you're stuck with it.
But when the Human Genome Project was completed, they discovered we only have about 23,688 genes. To put that in perspective, a water flea has more genes than a human being.
Wait, really? A water flea? That's definitely not nearly enough genes to explain the complexity of human biology, let alone human disease.
Because genes are not immutable stone tablets, they are switches. What epigenetics reveals is that up to 90% of those genetic switches are turned on or off by signals from our environment. And here is the crucial part. Your cells don't know the difference between an actual environmental threat and a threat you are just imagining in your mind.
Oh, wow. So your emotional state is the environment that your genes are reacting to.
Exactly. When you feel chronic stress, your brain signals the hypothalamus, which pumps out neuropeptides, which cascade into your bloodstream and dock onto your cells. Those cells then downregulate or turn off the genes responsible for tissue repair and immunity, and they upregulate the genes for inflammation and survival.
Which brings us to Dr. Ellen Langer's 1981 Harvard Monastery study. This entirely reframes how we think about aging. She took 8 elderly men in their 70s and 80s to a retreat in New Hampshire.
I love this study.
It's amazing. They retrofitted the entire place to perfectly mimic the year 1959. Vintage magazines, old radios playing Perry Como, black and white TVs. And the men weren't just supposed to reminisce, they were instructed to actively pretend they were 22 years younger.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Langer's was fundamentally altering their environmental and psychological signals to flip different genetic switches.
Mm,
And the biological mechanism here is profound.
yeah.
By immersing themselves in an environment where they felt young, competent, and stress-free, their brains stopped signaling the release of cortisol and stress hormones.
And without the stress hormones, what happens to the cells?
Well, the cells begin to upregulate the genes associated with youth and repair. In just 5 days, these men physically aged backward. Their posture straightened, their joint flexibility increased, their vision and hearing actually improved.
And the detail that is still hard to wrap my mind around, their fingers literally lengthen. In 5 days, the arthritis reversed itself enough that their bones and joints physically changed shape.
They turned on the circuits in their brains that reminded them of who they were 22 years ago, and their body chemistry responded. We are constantly regulating our genetic expression moment to moment.
So the old blueprint metaphor we learned in high school biology is completely wrong. DNA isn't a blueprint. It's almost more like a massive library of possibilities. And our daily thoughts and our emotional states act as the librarian, constantly deciding which biological books to check out and read to ourselves.
That's a great analogy. The genetic potential is always there. But the environment, your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs determines which genes are expressed and which remain silent.
So this brings up the million-dollar question. If we possess this incredible innate biological power, if we are walking pharmacies capable of rewriting our own genetic code just by changing our environment and our focus, why is it so incredibly hard to change our health?
That is the big question.
Right, like, why is it so hard to lose weight or stop being anxious or heal our bodies? We are all so stuck in our ruts.
We are stuck because of the biological loop between thinking and feeling. When you have a thought, your brain produces neurotransmitters that make you feel an emotion matching that thought. Once you feel that emotion, your body sends a signal back to the brain, which generates more thoughts to match that feeling. Over time, your body literally memorizes these emotional chemical states.
So if I spend 10 years feeling anxious about my job, my cells physically adapt to require a constant supply of the chemicals associated with anxiety.
Precisely. By the time you are 35 years old, 95% of who you are is a subconscious set of memorized behaviors, emotional reactions, and attitudes. Your body has essentially become your mind. The body is running the show on autopilot based on the chemistry it is addicted to.
So when I wake up and decide today's the day I'm going to think positively and change my health, it's really just my tiny 5% conscious mind trying to paddle upstream against a 95% subconscious biological current.
You can recite positive affirmations all day long. But if your body has memorized the chemical state of suffering for 20 years, the body's going to reject that new thought. It demands the familiar chemistry. This is why true change requires what Dispenza calls crossing the river of change. This raises an important question. How do we as humans learn to sit with the deep discomfort of the unknown, realizing that the void is the only place where true creation happens?
Here's where it gets really interesting. When you finally decide to stop thinking the same redundant thoughts, you stop making the same choices. But the moment you do that, you enter the unknown. And this gap between the old self and the new self feels incredibly, overwhelmingly uncomfortable. Because it's not just a mental shift.
It is the literal biological, chemical, and genetic death of the old self. We are biologically wired to fear the unknown, to run back to the familiar, even if the familiar is a state of painful disease. But that uncomfortable void is the only place where true creation happens. You cannot create a new physical reality while remaining addicted to the chemistry of your known past.
And this is the ultimate aha moment for me. Think about this, learner. When you try to change a habit, or you try to heal your body or stop worrying, and you suddenly feel anxious, wrong, or deeply uncomfortable, that isn't a sign that you are failing. That discomfort is actually the literal withdrawal symptoms of your old personality dying off.
Yeah.
Your body is addicted to the old chemistry, and it's throwing a tantrum because you cut off the supply.
Recognizing that discomfort is a biological withdrawal symptom rather than a sign of failure is incredibly empowering. It means the process is working. It means the old neural pathways are pruning away and new ones are beginning to sprout. If you can endure that void without running back to your old emotional addictions, you will emerge biologically different on the other side.
We have covered some serious ground today. We started with veterans getting sham knee surgeries and walking pain-free 6 years later. We looked at the terrifying reality of the nocebo effect, where the expectation of harm can literally crash your blood pressure or cause a localized rash.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. We explored the internal pharmacy of the brain that synthesizes dopamine and endorphins on command, and we dove down into the very switches of your DNA, proving that you are not a victim of your biology. You are the librarian. You are your own placebo.
The science is unequivocally clear. Your beliefs, whether conscious or subconscious, are continuously shaping your physical reality. The challenge is recognizing the subconscious programming that dictates 95% of your life and having the courage to cross that uncomfortable river of change to program a new reality.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. We've established that your individual brain and body cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined threat and physical reality. But what happens to our collective reality?
That's a scary thought.
In a modern world where millions of us consume the exact same pessimistic news feeds, the same stressful media, the same dystopian entertainment every single day, wait, I mean, are we inadvertently casting a massive cultural nocebo effect on our entire society? Are we collectively handing our brain's method acting director a script of total disaster and forcing our biology to express the genes of disease and stress?
I mean, if we are constantly feeding ourselves fear and crisis, we are biologically preparing our bodies for that exact reality.
Which means the most radical thing you can do for your physical health and for the world might just be deciding to change the channel. Because at the end of the day, you are the one swallowing the pills of your daily habits and beliefs. It's up to you to realize that they might just be made of sugar. Catch you on the next deep dive.